Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSPIS. Ukraine War Frontline update for the 9th of July 2024. This will be a fairly non-granular and hopefully quite quick frontline update. I've been spending so much time trying to keep an eye on NATO summit, lots of news coming out today that, goodness me, it's just endless at the moment, and my geopolitics video was huge, so do apologise about that. There's so much to fit in. Anyway, if you don't know what the lines on my map mean, please check out the map, the key on the screen at the moment. Just before we go to the front line, there is a New York Times article that says, titled, US officials say Russia is unlikely to take much more Ukrainian territory. Russia is unlikely to make significant territorial gains in Ukraine in the coming months as its poorly trained forces struggle to break through Ukrainian defences that are now reinforced with Western munitions, US officials say. And I broadly agree with that. I don't think there is too much left in the Russian tank. The Ukrainians are mobilising now, getting some new units together, some brigades, brand new brigades have been, I think, tooled up, and I would assume they're going to be used for rotations, which might well put a stop to maybe some of that advancing that's taking place. It is quite grinding. There are some worries in a number of places. Let's look at what's happened on the front line, and we'll go straight to the north. I'm not going to go through the ISW's daily report just for time. I've been so behind today. Anyway, the two sectors just to the north of Kharkiv, because I have heard nothing about the third one. In fact, Andrew Pepech has not changed his mapping at all there. He's shown no advances, but Deep State Maps and Syriac Maps has a third advance there. We have in the Kharkiv direction near Lyubimka, or in Lyubimka here, the Russians being pushed back as according to Syriac Maps in that area. The Ukrainian army has increased their control over the warehouses north of Lyubimka. Those are the industrial warehouses. We heard about that the other day, actually. So sometimes these things take a few days to filter through. Here we have another source saying the Kharkiv front is a continuing failure for Russia as Ukrainian forces take back more of Lyubimka, and that those are these northern agricultural warehouses and whatnot. North of the town, you can see there some agricultural get-up being taken by the Ukrainians, or at least pushing the Russians out. Now there is a bit of rejigging going on in the main town of Lyubimka, where Syriac Maps has the Russians maybe having a bit more control there than previously thought. I don't know that that's a gain by them necessarily, but a bit of a change there. And then when we come over to the western sector, no change from any of the mappers in Vovchansk, which is interesting. Slight change to the area south of Staritsia, where the Russians might have been pushed back a little bit, or some rejigging. It's not particularly substantial, but a slight change there for Syriac Maps. No other map has changed their mapping in any of these northern sectors. We'll come down to the area near Vilshana and Persho-Travnevi sort of area, to the southeast of Liman Pershi, where both Deep State Maps and Syriac Maps show some gains for the Russians in that area. Not too much really to report, just a large field actually, but a field or so there under Russian control now that previously wasn't. And then we come down, no change to this area where the Russians have been pushing forward near Pischany, west of Krokmelna. Some really big gains for the Russians over the last couple of days, as according to Deep State and Syriac, but no change to Andrew Pepech there, who's keeping his line much more conservative. No changes to some of these other hot points along the northeastern axis. And indeed, we get down to Terny and Torska, no change there. Same for the Serebryansky Forest, that's been the scene of a lot of heavy fighting. No change along the Seversk front. And indeed, no change, very importantly, in Chaziv Yar. I wonder whether the Russians are taking a breather. They've been pushing really hard to get to the canal, which they have successfully done on all three points here, such that it's now equalised right across there. The Kalinivka, although actually no one agrees that they're right at the culvert at Kalinivka yet, or the bridge there. Culvert here, bit of is it a bridge over there, or it's part of the culvert there. No gains for the Russians right up to there, according to any of the mappers, but generally pushed up to the canal from just south of there, past or in the Canal Micro District and then to the south in this wooded area where there's another culvert here. So the Russians having success all around here, and then further down to the south along the canal to a point much further to the south. So yeah, Russians might have just said, hey, we'll take a breather, reconstitute, we now control all this land, we won't be under any pressure apart from artillery and whatnot, so we'll just make sure that we can get our supply line sorted and reconstitute the forces somewhat, or rotate, or take a breather before taking the really big step to take on Chasiv Yar. Now the question is going to be, do they have the forces to be able to take Chasiv Yar? So the answer is probably yes, but at what cost? They might well utterly exhaust themselves, because this will be a very tough gig for them to succeed in. I mean, this is a very well defended area. The Ukrainians have been waiting for the Russians there. Yeah, so we'll see what the Russians do. No change to the Toretsk or New York areas today. So last 24 hours, that's good news for the Ukrainians. This is an area here where they've used was it New York, where they came up behind the Russians, with the Ukrainians, by going under the pipes again, and then moving towards Toretsk as well. So that's been a real worry over the last few weeks. But it seems to have, I don't know if it's stabilized, but no changes anyway to the mappers today. Worryingly, the Russians, as according to all the mappers to differing degrees in different places, Russians are moving all along this area. Let's talk about them getting closer, dangerously closer to the T0504 highway as they are pushing on up this, I guess, is a set of tree lines, water feature just here, towards Vozdechenka, and that is definitely a concern. So Surat maps and mainly Deep State here. Deep State really actually disagreeing with what Surat had already said broadly. A little bit difference there. And then further to the south around Lozovatsky, we have, again, those two mappers agreeing that the Russians have pushed forward. And then further to the south, Deep State indicating that they think the Russians have pushed further forward towards Pokharez, right across that front there, with Surat maps then with Deep State agreeing that west of Sokil and into Yevanivka, the Russians have been making consistent advances. Andrew Perpetua agreeing that this whole salient there, this bridgehead that the Russians have, is indeed true. So that's not that they've taken that last 24 hours, but Andrew Perpetua agrees with the other mappers. And then some gains around the trying to encompass Novoselivka, Persia here, from Novopokrovska. The Russians are just moving in on that town. It's a fairly substantial town, but you can see that they're sort of pulling around that to try and, I guess, operationally encircle it. So worrying in the northern part of Avdiivka. No changes further to the south. Some small changes within Krasnohorivka. So this town, fairly sizable town that Russians are fighting over, they've basically pushed up around the sports ground in the middle of the town, and in this sort of park area, they pushed on through, taking a few parts of roads either side of that. So that's the gains in Krasnohorivka, and then no change further to the south past Mariinka and then Novomikhailivka. No change to Velika Novosilka. It's been quite quiet for the last week or so after there was some Russian gains around Urizhny and Staromyorska. And then we have two mappers, Andrew Perpetua and Surat maps, showing some gains in the Robotyne area. Here, Null Reports says a newly geolocated footage shows Russian forces have advanced along the T0803 highway west of Novopokrovka. This does not particularly have to mean recent advances, as little footage has been coming out of this region for a long time. So he's saying that actually, some movement along this highway, but it might have happened some time ago. It's just footage to suggest that. Surat maps and Andrew Perpetua reacting to that evidence to show that the Russians are in control of that area, but no particular changes elsewhere. I just missed this source out. What did this have? Yeah, this was just generally around the Avdiivka, showing that the Russians have advanced on multiple points of that area. So there you go. That's the frontline update for today. Generally, Russians doing okay along parts of the Eastern Front, although a lot of areas are quite quiet. The question is, like I keep saying, how much further can they go? And you've got mainstream media suggesting that possibly not an awful lot further. They are going to be running short on potentially most things. With the attrition rates that they've been experiencing in all parts of the front line. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. Really appreciate your support. Take care, everybody. It's a very dynamic scene at the moment. Politically, there's an awful lot going on everywhere. And hopefully I'm keeping you abreast of the situation, even if some of the videos are just a little bit longer because everyone's doing everything all at once. And that's the story of this this campaign, this whole war, is that you get your quiet moments and then there's a NATO summit while Orban's visiting everyone and Modi's having a hug with a dictator, and then you got Xi Jinping, China, doing mental stuff, and yeah, it's all going off. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care. Speak soon. Toodle pips.